afternoon, good evening, good day to you, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of A Girl Like Me Live. We are here and we are making it happen. I'm so excited. This is episode 38. Like, I can't even believe it. Cece, who is your usual host, is not here today. It is me and a very good friend of mine who is an amazing human and individual. And we are going to be having an in-depth conversation about menopause. And we were chatting backstage before we popped out, and we've got I think some really good tidbits and some things that need to be said around menopause and sisterhood and the conversations that we have or don't have, and how community plays into not just the menopausal transition, but into how we feel about ourselves and each other in this process. So, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Bridgette Picou. I am a nurse by trade and the stakeholder liaison for the Well Project. I've been living with HIV now for almost 14 years and definitely aging with HIV. I was technically aging with HIV at diagnosis because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 40. And so this whole transitional process has been, let's say, interesting to say the least. And I want to introduce my amazing guest and friend, Ms. Dottie Rains-Dowdell. Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you today? And thank you for allowing me to be with you today. I'm excited about this topic.
I'm absolutely excited to talk about it. It's become part of my advocacy work and part of the focus of the things that I talk about often when I'm talking about women and HIV. And it's important. There's not enough, we already know, there's things that we know. There's not enough research, number one. There's not enough clinicians to be able to really relate to us and assist us as it relates to the intersection of HIV and menopause. And so it's really important that we jump into this and have this conversation. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start with something that we were talking about backstage, because I think it's a really good starting point. We as women early on learn that there's a certain amount of shame related to our reproductive health. And a lot of times in HIV, when we talk about aging across the lifespan, we're usually referring to disease processes. We don't really talk about the female things, right? And so you were saying that you went to a very interesting party recently, and I want you to tell folks about that.
Yes, I did. And this was maybe a couple of months ago. You have folks that you, in terms of family, you have the family that you were born into, and then you have your bonus or your chosen family. And I remember calling one of my folks, and we were just chit-chatting it up, and she said, I just want to let you know that your niece got her period today, and we're having a period party for her. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what? Okay, a period party. Like, we've been having these conversations behind the scene, but I've never been able to attend one of these parties. And I have an 8-year-old daughter. And so I thought it was like a really cool thing for us to attend. And when we got there, it was set up like there was a table set up with a red tablecloth, and like you would bring gifts, things that relate to a young girl having her period, whether it's the pads, it's the wipes, the things that you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself during that time of the month. So we came in, and it was about, I don't know, maybe like 10 women, various ages, from like 80 plus to my daughter's age, 8. And then some folks wind up joining us virtually, right? Because they couldn't be there in person, but they were able to join us virtually. And it was an amazing time of bonding, of just almost like rewriting the narrative on how we discuss things related to normal things that happen to women and young girls. And so it was an opportunity for everyone to share their period story. Like, what happened to you, when you first got your period, what happened, what was happening, and everyone was able to tell it from their perspective. And I mean, I was shocked because we had like a grandmom in the room. She's like 84, 85, and she talked about what it was for her back in those times, even being in a different country, to like the most recent folks. And it really helped me to open up dialogue with my daughter about what she could expect. And then when we got home, it was so interesting because I told my husband, and he's very much the old school of what is this? Just very, like hands off, if you will. And my daughter was so excited about this new information. And she was like, Dad, so do men get their periods too? And he was like, no. And he's looking at me. There was a sense of discomfort there. It was discomfort, but it was also, it was empowering, right? To be able to give her the tools, and that it's not some mystery, that we can have this open dialogue and you can talk about your concerns. And we all did. We talked about our concerns. We talked about us to be, to enter into that space of as folks will call it, womanhood, if you will, and things to look out for. How do you take care of yourself during that time, what you can and cannot do around that time. If you want to go swimming, Bridgette, you can. You just have to do certain things in order to do that. So it was a really cool time, and I felt like we were changing the narrative. We were changing the way that we looked at women's health. And when young girls are, looking or thinking about their bodies and looking at their bodies, that there's not this taboo or this curse that we talked about before we got on. So it was a really cool time. And I think that's where it starts, having open dialogue about
Absolutely.
that.
I think aside from the fact that it is fabulous to put young girls in a position where they can celebrate the changes that they're having, as opposed to trying to hide them or being ashamed of them, is one thing. And changing the narrative is the other thing.
Yes.
Olivia in the chat was saying she would love to take her daughter to something like that. I remember when I got my first period, my mother wasn't home. My mother and my aunts and all of their friends used to play cards on Friday nights, and it rotated different people's houses. And they happened to be at my aunt's house, and my period started, and I called my aunt's house, and my aunt answered the phone, and I was like, can I talk to my mom, please? And she was like, my aunt was very intuitive and knew me really well. And she was like, what's the matter? And I was like, nothing. Can I talk to my mom?
Mhm.
And she handed my mother the phone, and I was like, I started my period, and my mother was like, oh, congratulations. And she actually made the announcement to all of the ladies in the room, and they started clapping. But I still remember feeling just a tiny little bit of shame because of everything that I had learned coming up to that point. Like we were talking about it. There used to be, it was either a commercial or an educational program at school. I can't remember which at this point because it was so long ago. But I remember there was part of the thing, it was in black and white, and the girl picks up the phone and she's like, I can't go swimming. I've got the curse. And I remember thinking, dang, I'm gonna be cursed just because I have my period. And
Mhm.
so I think the way that we set young girls up has a lot to do with how we age into our reproductive health and reproductive process, because it's all connected, right? Some of the shame around sex and sexual health and sexual wellness are tied back into, I think, the way that our first periods were approached and the conversations that we had, right? Whether it was, stories I've heard about, okay, now you're a woman, don't get pregnant.
Right.
Right? Not now you're a woman and let's celebrate these steps that are coming into it. It is immediately the negative and the shame connotation, which kind of happens with HIV too, right? Like
Mhm.
they're things that have a certain amount of stigma attached to them. If they're not talked about or expressed in the right way, then it becomes a shameful experience rather than something to be considered a transition, which is really what, menopause is. Um, and let's call that out, right? Menopause is a transition. It is
Mhm.
not it sometimes they call it the change, but it's not a negative thing, right? Like anyone with ovaries and a uterus are going to have a period, or have periods and experience menopause.
Mhm.
um it, how we handle it is what matters, I think. When you went through your transition, And this, let's not talk about menopause. Let's talk about perimenopause.
Mhm.
When perimenopause started for you, did you recognize what was happening, or were you attributing it to something else?
So I'm there now, right? Like you don't know. I remember, you hear about it. I think we've been doing a lot of having conversations about menopause, perimenopause, um, like in mainstream, right? In some of the circles that I am in the spaces that I'm in, I'm starting to see women, specifically Black women, having the conversations around perimenopause, menopause, what to expect, what not to expect. But I think, especially within the HIV community, we're not having that level of conversation. We're starting, right? This is starting. So even being a person that was diagnosed at 16 and I'm now 50, um, looking at just some of the concerns and questions that I have around menopause. So are the flashes, sometimes you experience hot flashes, right? Or you get really hot, or when you go to bed, your body runs really hot where you have to like take off, your nightwear and put on something dry. Oftentimes I'm wondering, is this perimenopause? Is this due to me being a long-term survivor? Is this due to the medication? So there's so many like things that you can't really pinpoint what it is. It can be one of three um at play. So those are some of the concerns that I'm glad that we're having this conversation. Or when you think about when you're forgetting, you be midway in a sentence and you forget what you're saying or
Child.
the next word, and you're like, okay, so you have to take that pause, right? So really, I want to say leaning into that, right? Because it is what it is. It is what it is. It's normal. It's a normal process to the transition, as you said. But really being able to have those conversations, because I think oftentimes we sit in our own silos and we suffer in
Mm-hmm.
silence
Mm-hmm.
without having the conversation. Because I can say, "Oh, Bridget, oh my goodness, I'm experiencing that," and you're like, "Girl, me too." And then you find that when you start to uncover or have conversations, that you're not the only one, and then together we can develop or talk about strategies or methods to like mitigate some of those symptoms, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it is either that we suffer in silence, we gaslight ourselves into thinking that what's happening is not happening,
Mhm.
or we allow other people to gaslight us into the fact that, oh, you're just being dramatic or you're doing too much. And it's not doing too much. Absolutely not. The change that is happening in your body, estrogen has such a protective factor in every single function in our body. And I don't think people realize that. I think people just associate estrogen with reproductive health. But in fact, it influences cardiovascular health, it influences your bone health, it influences your mental well being, right? Brain function. All of these things are impacted by estrogen. And when that decline starts, your body is like really trying to adjust and going through a lot. And so it is not doing too much to be feeling extra over the top dramatic because your body is changing in so many ways. Um, the other thing is that uh, perimenopause itself can last 8 to 10 years. And a lot of people think you hit that menopausal point, and menopause is the point where your periods stop,
Mhm.
and then boom, all of the symptoms go away. And that
Mhm.
is absolutely not true either. Some women have um, symptoms related to the menopausal transition for years after they've actually stopped having their periods.
Mhm.
And so all of that stuff creates, I think, a little bit of confusion for people in understanding what's going on. And then when you add HIV on top of that, earlier onset of symptoms, and the fact that as I've been doing this work, what I've been finding is that women very much, the first thing that they think about is that there's something happening with HIV.
Yes.
Even if they've been stable, undetectable on their meds for a long, long time, when their body starts to change, they immediately associate it with something is going on with me because of HIV, as opposed to it being the normal transitional period and perimenopausal period. And so, another reason, and I think we're going to say this over and over again because we're living the life, another reason why this is so important for us to have these kind of open conversations. I didn't have hot flashes. And so it took me even longer to associate what was happening to me with perimenopause, menopause.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am sensitive to cold now, which I never was before. And I only recently discovered that that is a menopausal symptom, right? So 75%, a little more than 75% of women, I think it is, get the hot flashes. But for a certain percentage of women, that doesn't happen, but you do become sensitive to cold, which is what's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
I missed Joe's comment, but Joe just put something. I think we can get it back up. Um, but I think she's also in that period too. She said fatigue and perimenopause when living alone, navigating through this is difficult. Absolutely. Working women in the end of the day have no energy to cook or care for themselves except sleep. We try, but our body cries. That is
Yes.
1000% the truth. Thank you for bringing that up, Joe, because exhaustion is another piece of it. What were the symptoms that, or what are the symptoms that you are struggling with the most?
I mean, do we have time?
That part, right? That part.
I'm like, do
For
we
me,
have?
it's the brain fog.
It's the brain fog. It's the thinning or this changing in textures of hair, right? It's
Falling
that
out.
falling out except for right here. Except this.
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. It
Yes.
falls out here on those edges, but it never falls out in the where you don't want it, right? So you see
Yes.
hair growing in places where you don't want it and where you need it to grow, it's not happening, right? So it's that.
Yes.
It's the brain fog, it's the weight gain.
Oh,
Even if you're
girl.
right, like you're trying to eat right, you're trying to exercise, you're like, what's happening? And so that's another piece that I wanted to mention here too is the weight gain because of the medication? You know what I mean? Is it because, right? So is the medication, is that a contributing factor, or is it menopause, or is it both? Sometimes that's the challenge there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not only are you tired, but I don't know if you've ever experienced like wanting to go to sleep, like almost insomnia. Like I can't fall asleep or stay asleep is another way that sleep disruption. So you wonder why we're so moody. Think about what sleep deprivation does to a person with that, a person that's not going through menopause, a woman that's not living with HIV. That can
Yeah.
make you it, it can make you seem a little off, if you will, and those in your area will also be like, well, what's going on with you? You're very on edge because you didn't get sleep. So
Yeah.
I feel like sleep deprivation is one. Sometimes you can't go to sleep for a couple of days and then you just want to sleep all the
Yeah.
time. So those are sometimes the moodiness, like
Listen.
you feel things real intensely. You're like, well, this is not you saying to yourself, it's not that deep, but how you're responding to like what's ever happening in the environment is
Mm-hmm.
it feels dramatic to you. It for me, it
Mm-hmm.
feels dramatic. It's like, okay, you're over the top, but you almost can't help because you feel it so deeply and intense.
And that's the crazy thing. Like, this period, this transition has really impacted my relationship with myself. Not the way, not so much, and I want to try to explain it. It's not so much how I feel about myself. I still love myself.
Of course.
But the way that I relate to myself, the internal dialogue that I'm having with myself, because either I'm upset because why am I getting upset about this? And I'm mad at myself because I'm getting mad for no reason, but it's not for no reason. Right. And then it's how am I treating the people around me and how am I interacting with the people around me? Does that give me guilt because I didn't get except, half an hour of sleep at a time last night and I'm cranky, like you said. And so then I'm trying not to take that out on people. So then there's the burden of that. So it really does impact the interpersonal relationships we have with the people that are around us, but it also really impacts our relationships with ourselves, how we see ourselves, right? Like, um, I we both have this, the magic of the black don't crack, that melanin has that protective fact. But at the same time, my body is telling me, no, you may look 40, but you're not
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
And despite what people want to believe, 50 is not the new 40 because my body has changed. And being 50 plus, because I'm over 50 now,
Mhm.
um, it really does bring into focus the fact that I have to like reset myself and ground myself in the fact that um, menopause is a factor and a byproduct of the natural aging process, but it doesn't mean that I'm old.
Correct.
You know, a lot of what we used to be taught and what we would see on TV shows and in commercials and in movies is that when women hit that age and that menopause, then we're less valuable, right? Men don't age, they get more distinguished, and women just get old. That whole narrative still exists. And I think that we really have to change the way that we look at that and the way that we allow people to assign those things to us and
Mm-hmm.
make us feel, you know, the way that people make us feel about ourselves in this period, in this transitional period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for your healthcare, do you have more than one clinician that you're seeing? Are you seeing your infectious disease provider as your primary care provider? Or do you have one that you see for that, one that you see for this? Are you seeing someone else for that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that's another aspect that we really need to like make people aware of and have people talk about. Because yes, it's enough to have your primary care physician also act, or your ID clinician, your HIV clinician act as your primary care physician if they want to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they don't know nothing about menopause, right? And they got to send you out to someone else. So how are you handling that?
So I see a few providers. I do have my ID, my infectious disease doc that I see. And depending on what I'm presenting at the moment, she can serve as my primary care, but I do have a primary care physician, as well as my gynecologist, as well as my cardiologist and podiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can go on and on and on, right?
On and on and on. Mm-hmm.
Right, right. Because I do believe in preventative care, wellness care, all of that. And so um, when it's relating things to like menopause, I'm having conversations with all the people about it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my cardiologist, you know, when he tells me that your blood pressure is elevated, and I was in denial for years, and then my gynecologist said my after I had my daughter that my blood pressure was elevated. I'm like, because it would be right, the black woman with high blood pressure. Like I didn't want to be her, right? I didn't want to have the high blood pressure. I know what the outcome can be if it's untreated, but like, can I do some things holistically? Like, how does that work? And then, you know, I decided, okay, maybe you need to take a low dose, continue to eat right and exercise and all the things. But again, as I'm getting older, I'm seeing that I need to care for myself in a different way. You know, when you're younger, you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of just do not just what you want to do, but you're not as focused or intentional about your health care, even if you have a diagnosis for the most part. But when you get older, you start to see like some of these things manifest, and that you want to, for me, I want to be on top of it because I want to live well for a long time, if that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm having the conversations, whatever the symptoms are. I'm having those conversations because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, again, is it menopause? Is it HIV? Is it me just getting older? Is it because I'm a long-term survivor on top of that, or the type of medication I'm on? So I need to have it across the board and keeping everybody in the loop. And being honest about where I am with it. Like it took a long time. I was like, I'm not taking this medication for high blood pressure.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you know, my fingers were swelling. I started getting swelling in my feet, and I was just like, okay, we gotta have to do something about it. So really being able to have the conversations with all of the providers, because again,
Yeah.
I don't know, and I think providers are learning too, right?
Yeah.
Like they're learning
Yeah.
too um how these things are coexisting like at the same time, right? So like, how do we do this? So I believe in just having the conversations with all of them, even if it's unrelated. I'm just letting you know this is what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've always had excellent blood pressure.
Hmm.
Um, you know how people will think that they're complimenting you but insult you. Like I remember having a doctor that I was seeing tell me that oh, I'll take your blood pressure any day. And in my head, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then he continued on by saying, you know, you are, and this is literally his words, your blood pressure is always great considering that you're fat, black, and over 40.
What you're not gonna do is say that.
But this is how they talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this is and that's the bias, the medical bias that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am all of these things, fat, black, and over 40, then I have to have high blood pressure. But no, that's not the case, right? My blood pressure is always great. I do have an issue with this. Now, can we address this and talk about this? Like what I'm sitting in this office with you for, I'm here because I'm having problems with my wrist and dealing with carpal tunnel. Like, this is what I came to you for, not to be insulted about this other stuff and have your bias show up in ways that have nothing to do with the reason that I'm standing in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
But connecting those dots and advocating for ourselves.
Yes.
Because I should have cussed him out. I didn't, but I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to advocate for ourselves in those situations is really critically important. And, connecting the dots between what you said, as far as having a cardiologist,
Mm-hmm.
women over 40 that are living with HIV, especially as we start to approach our 50s, if we are starting to experience the symptoms of perimenopause, it's
Mm-hmm.
probably a good idea to ask for a cardiology workup.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because women living with HIV are more vulnerable to heart disease, which a lot of us don't know and aren't aware of. So, being able to make sure that we are not just hitting the check boxes because they're check boxes, but because it matters to our overall health. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, being able to live a long time and live
Yeah.
well for a long time. We know women live longer than men, but women have more sick days than men.
Mm-hmm.
So we are living longer, but we're living sicker. And
Mm-hmm.
so these are all things that we need to pay attention to as we are transitioning into our older years, our more mature period of time, right? Because we're not old, we are
We're seasoned.
seasoned and
Yes.
mature, and all of those things. Um, what are some of the things that feel harder for you during this period? And I'm talking emotionally, physically. What are some of the things that because I can tell you, for me, my mood and the brain fog are the things that I am having the hardest time with, because I always associated myself with being smart. Um, uh, I'm gonna have you put that comment back up for us, Olivia, in just a second, from Krista and Joe. But I always associated myself with being smart
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being anything else, right? Before I was pretty or whatever. This brain fog is killing me
Mm-hmm.
because the fact that I can't remember, or I'm searching for words or trying to, grasp at completing, it's crazy for me.
Mm-hmm.
What's that thing for you? That one thing for you that didn't happen, 5 years ago, 8 years ago?
I mean, as I'm thinking about it, it's a few things. It's the not being able to get rid of the generosity when it comes to weight, right? So it's you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing the things and it's not happening as quick as I would like. Because I do believe in being active, as well as eating well. Now, do I do it 100% of the time? No, but I'm on my way, because I also like how I feel mentally. Like when I'm exercising, I like how I feel mentally. But I think I like you. The brain fog is something, and I'm grateful that I have a lot of years working, so folks know my work. So it's not like I'm coming off like I don't know what I'm saying. And I'll say it in a meeting. Listen, it's Perry's here, and I just have brain fog. Give me 1 second. Sometimes, and I just try to bring awareness, right? Even
Mhm.
while I'm going through it, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is the word? And I may say, Bridgette, what's the word? And you're like, oh, it's this. I'm like, it's perimenopause. Y'all, just thank you for your patience, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's that. But I thank goodness that I have years in working where folks again know my work. And now if I was in my
Yeah.
20s doing this, that would be a different situation, because folks would be like, you're too young to have that. What's going on? But I think it's the weight, it's the not being able to I think it's the weight gain, it's the brain fog. And I think too at 50, I'm becoming more reflective, right? And I don't know if this has anything, I think it's a culmination of everything where you start to realize how you are or how you were and what got you to this point is probably not serving you now
Mm-hmm.
as we move forward. An example would be I am I'm a planner. I'm a strategic thinker. I'm one of those like, okay, so what do we need to do next week, next month? How do we get there? I'm a problem solver. I'm very solution focused.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how much of this has been rooted in like anxiety though? Right? Like, you know how
Yeah.
sometimes you just get real reflective, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Say
like,
that. Yeah.
right, like you're like, wait a minute, because I've life hasn't been a crystal stair for me, just like most
Yeah.
people. We all have our stuff.
Yeah.
And so out of that, I've gained the incredible skill of being able to like plan, to focus, to problem solve. But now I find myself, Bridgette, if I'm honest, sometimes 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 a.m., I can't turn it off. And my
Yeah.
brain is moving. And sometimes that can also play a part in the sleep deprivation, right? Because you're up. So like insomnia is
Mm-hmm.
kicking in. Your brain, you can't turn it off. So then I'm like, oh, how much of this is rooted in anxiety? Do you have, is there some, is there a little anxiety happening
Something
here for
underlying.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Right, right. You know, you're just like, what's happening here that you're not able to turn it off and you're constantly thinking. So I think being 50, being aware, all of the things that we just talked about, and just really figuring out, okay, what's happening here? Because it was really good when I was, listen, I just finished my doctoral program, right? Graduated last year with my doctorate in health science. So having all of that, oh, being up at 2 o'clock in the morning served me because I had to get these
Yeah.
papers done. I had to, answer questions on the discussion board. I had to get ready for the dissertation and the proposal and all the things. Now you don't have
Yeah.
all of that now. Now what do we
Yeah.
do? Because you've
That
conditioned
part.
yourself to do this. But what happens when your
Yeah.
life is not moving at that pace anymore? How do we now
Yeah.
slow down the internal dialogue and the thank you, Krista. How do we now slow down the internal dialogue and the thought process to meet where you
Yeah.
are currently? So that's where I am at this current moment. I know you asked like what are the things that stand out, but that would be the biggest too. Just really being reflective and saying to myself, all right, some of the things that served me, it worked perfect in that environment, but you're not in that environment anymore. So like what do
Yeah.
we do this now? Because it's now gonna take a toll in other ways
Mm-hmm.
on your health. So I have to be mindful of that as well.
I think it forces it. Menopause, perimenopause. I love that you were saying Perry showed up. I call menopause Minerva because she be getting on my nerves.
Minerva, I like that.
But
Mhm.
when it shows up in our life, it does force you to sit with yourself and not just reflect on where you're coming from and what life was, but what it's going to be going forward and how you're going to transition into the new space and what you're going to take with you, that anxiety, that depression, that all of that. And are you taking that with you into this new phase and transition in your life? I want to catch up on some of the comments. So Krista had said a little while ago that, as Joe mentions, there's a fatigue aspect, and it
Mhm.
can often be coupled with insomnia during this transition. Kicking my butt. The last couple of weeks, I promise you, I think I've been sleeping maybe 30, 45 minutes, an hour, which you're like, oh, that's great. That's most of the hour. But no, it's not, because this is during that time period when your body is supposed to be shut down and rebuilding and recovering. And I'm up at least 15 minutes of every hour. And it's
Mm.
not consistent. It may be 45 minutes and I'm up for 10, and then I go back to sleep and I'm up 15 minutes later and I'm up for 30, and then I doze back off and I'm up again for another, right? The, and during that time, like you were talking about, what I'm finding is that I can't shut my brain down. Like I know I'm supposed to be asleep, but
Mhm.
I'm conscious of the fact that I know that I'm supposed to be asleep and I'm awake. And so there's that anxiety. My anxiety absolutely increased when I hit this perimenopausal period. My depression increased,
Mhm.
which I've been living with and I talk about it. I've been living with depression for most of my adult life.
Mhm.
That increase during this period. And so, but then at the same time, I was like, dang, is it the HIV? Is it my meds? Do I need to think about changing my meds? All of those things. Um, Angel says she can relate on so many levels. She's been in menopause for years, and she thinks she's just going crazy. And you're not. That's what we've been talking about. It's to Joe's point. She says it's a normal phase or transition. She generally feels that it affects her quality of life. She may be wrong. Can Dottie give her input as per your experience on quality of life? I will just say before I let it absolutely impacts overall quality of life. And quality of life has everything to do with how we see ourselves. Go ahead. What do you think?
That's a really good question. Yes, I believe it does impact your overall quality of life. And I think we have to develop new strategies. And what I mean by that is like, okay, I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. I'm just saying this is what works for me at this point. Like through my 20s and my 30s, I wasn't a coffee drinker, right? Not really, because I had enough energy. Like I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I got enough energy, but I realized like 30s, I mean the late 30s, 40s, like I've become a coffee drinker, like 1 cup in the morning, nothing ridiculous, like 1 cup in the morning. And I remember trying to like not drink coffee. This is an example. I'm trying not to drink coffee. And I was like, well, right now is doing what you needed to do. It's not causing any issues in terms of my health or anything like that. So if it's working right now, Dot, then maybe you need to like work it, right? So I think we need to, when we think about quality of life, how much of that is based off of like the history of what we knew worked for us, right? Like when we say quality of life, sometimes I have to get away to get rest because when I'm home, it's too much stuff to do, right? And sometimes we have to be creative, right? And get away depending on your economic standpoint, where responsibilities that you have at home. How do I now? I'm at a place in my life now where I'm intentional about bringing more joy into my life.
Yeah.
Right? Like
And
the thing.
there's,
Go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about all of the little adjustments that I've made to try to improve my quality of life. Right. And it's subtle things. Like I'm working from home. I had to start making it a point to take the trash out myself instead of asking my grandson to take the trash out, so that at least once a day I know I'm getting up and I'm walking down those stairs, right? And coming back up the stairs and getting exposed to the sunlight.
Yes.
I take him to and from school, my grandson to and from school. That's another opportunity for me to be up and down the stairs and out in the sunlight. And vitamin D.
Yes.
Most folks living with HIV have a vitamin D deficiency. We need the sunlight. We need to be out. Just and for your mental health, sun and grounding and grass and sand, if you can get to the beach, and being amongst the trees, all of those things are really, really important to our mental health, but it does our body good too, to be out in nature. We weren't meant to be stuck behind, and inside of a building all day, every day, so there is a thing about the little things that you can do to improve your quality of life, and taking a look at what that quality means to you, right? What do you find most important?
In this season,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes it's like, oh, they served me like 3 years ago, but you're not in 3 years ago, you're in today. So how do you develop some of those strategies or take a different approach on your quality of life? Like when I turned 50, Bridgette, I was so like, I told everybody, I know the folks at work, they were over me because guess what, guys? My birthday is like in a week, because I was like excited for many reasons, right? Just many reasons. But I also made a commitment to myself, because I'm real good at making commitments to other people and following through. But when it comes to like making commitments to self, sometimes I can not fulfill it, right? Because it's me. Like nobody's dependent on it. It's just me. So I wrote 50 things that I wanted to do between now and 51. right? Not a big party, but I want to do all the things that I always say that I want to do. So I've done some of them, and still, working through the list. But one thing was Thanksgiving. You know how when you have,
Mhm.
your family come through. For me, I'm cooking, I'm preparing for guests who may come through. I had an opportunity to go on a hike 6:15 in the morning on Thanksgiving, right? Right.
Mm,
So I was like, I'm excited. Like, but then it was the responsibility because you have to cook because the folks are gonna be dependent on you for this meal. But between 6:15 and 8:45, like really, what do you we're not eating during that time. You did most of your sides already. All you have to do is throw the turkey in the oven and it doesn't take like 24 hours to cook a turkey. You see what I'm saying?
right.
So I had to like really be intentional because my mind will tell me like, oh no, you don't have time. You do have time. You do have
Yeah.
time, right? And so I went on the hike, had a wonderful time, did like sun salutation at the top of the mountain with the group of folks that I was with, the yoga, after we hiked up to the mountain. So it was amazing. And then that Saturday, I scheduled some time with one of my best girlfriends who lived in Georgia. I had looked up this sanctuary for alpacas in her area, and I was like, "Girl, I'm coming to your house on Saturday. I'm leaving Sunday. Come with me to the alpacas. Come with me to see the alpacas." So I had an opportunity to get out again in nature and be with like animals and had a really good time. And I think we need to do more of that in this season of just pouring into our cups because I think it helps the other stuff that we've been talking about because we're always in mode. At least for me, I'm always in mode. Is family, work, outside activities, whether it's church, community, whatever the things are, we're always involved in work mode. When do we have a time? When are we intentional about pouring into our cups?
Hmm. About taking care of ourselves.
Taking care of yourself.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I am a person, it's a quirk or a whatever you want to call it. It's a personality thing, where I love words. And just when you said alpaca, just the word,
Mhm.
it does something. So it's the little things is my point. It's finding the little things in life that make you happy, and that shift your mood, right? And so hearing people say certain words or having certain words come up
Mhm.
just tickle me, and that is an immediate mood elevator. And it's allowing yourselves, the reason I'm pointing it out here, which is so random, but it's allowing ourselves to have that moment of elevation, allowing ourselves to go on the hike and to do the sun salutation and to not worry about if the food's going to be cooked. It's allowing yourself to take that extra 2 minutes standing outside to enjoy the peace. All of the things that we think are so pressing and so critical, they may be important, but they still won't be there when we get back.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And if we're feeling the pressure to complete them anyway, we may as well take a couple extra seconds to decompress before we let that pressure kill us, because that's eventually what it's going to do. If we're not
Mhm.
taking time for ourselves, if we're not letting the little things elevate us, if we're not paying attention to our mental health, we're not going to be here anyway to enjoy any of it. And so I love that there are all of these little ways that we can talk about. um, it's not just health, and it's not just self-improvement, and it's
Right.
not just survival. It really is our overall quality of health and
Yes.
quality of life, and just enjoyment. I want to enjoy my life. I don't want to spend my life stressed out, full of anxiety and depressed. That I don't think that that's what my purpose in this life was. And sometimes life can make you feel overwhelmed, and like that's where we're at. And so taking that little extra time, I think, is critically important. And I love that Joe asked that question so that we could round that piece out.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Krista is putting a lot of great little links in the chat for those of you who are there or who may watch the recording later. If you come onto, if you're on YouTube, if you take a look, I don't know if it shows up on YouTube and Facebook, but the comments on our Facebook Live have um, some great links about caring for your whole self, which is one we just highlighted. There's one on exercise, which we also highlighted. Um, there are tools at hand that not just the Well Project provides, but other resources that you can look to in order to be able to get that little thing started, because you may not know where to start. And
Mm-hmm.
this is, great ways to get started. Um, and so Angel says, since she got clean, self-care is different. She
Mm-hmm.
wants to make herself happy, and she'll need solitude sometimes. Daily reprieve is what I do daily. I can't take the spinning of my mind. And yes, I definitely understand that, because sometimes my mind won't stop spinning.
Mm-hmm.
I have little tricks that I try to do, especially at night. So with the insomnia, I've always had insomnia, but it's worse during this
Mm-hmm.
transitional period. Um, but I do like the rain sounds, or lo-fi jazz, or jazz for sleep. And what I do is I'll turn one of those things on
Mm-hmm.
and count rhythm, right? If it's a rain sound or like a thunderstorm, I'll count the time in between each clap of thunder or lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And that rhythm is what helps me settle my mind in order to be able to go back to sleep. And so that's something that I've come to lean on and depend on. So it's finding the little tricks and tips that help us manage and maintain what it
Mm-hmm.
is that we're feeling. I think that are really important.
Mm-hmm. And knowing like the
Um,
resources that you have available to you, right? Like,
yes.
because I love what you said. Like, sometimes I just need to laugh, and I need that gut belly laugh where your stomach hurts. So then I would like look up. I love a good phone prank situation, right? Like, you know how you and things like that where you may not be able to go to like the comedy club or whatever because of time or resources or what have you, but you can always connect. We have it here on our phone, right? Like, you just connect, you dial in, and you're just like, all right, let me see what's happening. I
Yeah.
think really utilizing that, and then maybe even identifying some of those time wasters, because
Uh,
on
the
social media,
endless scrolling,
what you say, and I get why
falling
we
down
do
the rabbit
it,
hole.
right? I get why we do it because sometimes we need a minute, but the minute has been 2 hours, and that could have been
Yeah.
at least an hour of that. Not saying don't scroll. I'm just saying, can you split it in half and do half outside and get in nature and half scroll? I'm just saying, like, it's all about behavior modification for me, right? Because I
Yeah.
need to become a practice. So those are the ways. I hear you. I love that. The
Yeah.
You said lo-fi jazz. Did you say lo-fi?
Lo-fi jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I really like is there's something called down tempo music,
Oh,
which is another really kind of relaxing um way of chilling out. Krista says she
mhm.
loves watching bloggers to lighten her mood.
Yes, the
Um,
bloopers.
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, it's the little things, or bloopers, sorry, not bloggers, bloopers. You mentioned comedy. I think that Richard Pryor is the king of all things comedy. And, when CDs were still a thing, which
Yes.
they aren't anymore, but I used to, in my truck, I had the entire collection of Richard Pryor CDs. And I would put them on as I'm driving around in my car and just laugh. And
Mhm.
I know people thought I was crazy, and I didn't care, because it was fun. And it was from point A to point B, I'm having a good time in my life and enjoying my life. And so I think that comedy is a really important part of that too. So
And
that's another tool that folks can use to help them cope and deal with and function.
yes.
I have this other question that I want to ask you, and we've already kind of talked about it a little bit. Actually, I'm going to ask you a different question.
Okay.
Um, did you have to set up new boundaries for yourself during this period and for your family? And what does that look like?
You know what, Bridget? You are playing with me today because yes and yes. Yes, because my experience, and I'm sure many people listening to this may have this similar experience. Oftentimes, the family, the community, folks depend on you for a lot, and sometimes the load can get heavy, right? Because so many people are vying for your time, whether it's work, whether it's what you do in the community, whether it's your fam, all the people, all the things, right? They're dependent on you. And I had to start to have the conversation. Angela said yes, yes, and yes. I had to start having the conversations with, I'm gonna say, my husband, right? Because when I turned 50, I said, listen, this is what I'm thinking. So it was like before I turned 50, I'm having the conversation. I just want you to know I'm going to be incorporating a lot more me time. It has nothing, it's nothing against you, because I need to prepare the people for this shift, right? Like I need to prepare you because it's going to happen, right? It's just going to happen. And I want to do it with your support. And I remember having a conversation. He was like, okay, okay. I said, so sometimes that looks like me going to the House Music Orchestrator in New York City, where CC Pennison and all the old school 90s artists were playing by way of an orchestra, like in the background. So I was like, it was a Thursday night. I don't typically, because I have an 8-year-old, she has studies, she has tutoring, she has all the things during the week, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just letting you know that I want to go. And I've already made provision for baby girl, right? Because I had to also, not to. First of all, let's just be real honest. We don't need to ask for permission to take care of ourselves. And I think
That's
sometimes we feel like we need to. You think it would be okay? It's like, listen, I really need this. I already did what I need to do in terms of my responsibility. I'm gonna see you back here at 1:30 a.m. And
yeah.
and after that, I'll be able to lock back in. But I think it's really one, what's coming to mind for me, like nobody's gonna save you but you. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think we sit and
Mm-hmm.
we want to be rescued, right? Like somebody please help me with my self-care. No, you have to be real intentional about not
Yeah.
asking permission, but saying, listen, this is what I need to do for my own wellness. I hope that you're going to be supportive, and this is how I'm making adjustments for my responsibility, whatever I'm responsible for. And so yes, you have to set boundaries, because you have to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
That's another topic for another day. You just have to set boundaries, be very intentional, and like save yourself. Like I'm not trying to be funny,
Yeah.
but like really, you're gonna have to do this for you because it is necessary.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah.
It's
I had to
necessary.
have a conversation with a loved one about the fact that my boundaries are not a punishment for you. They are security and protection for me. And I'm
Yes.
sorry if that feels like it's a negative towards you, or that I am, in some way trying to limit you or your. No, no. My boundaries are about me being in a space where I feel comfortable, where I
Hmm.
can be happy, where I can be satisfied, where I can take care of all of the millions of things that you need taken care of that you don't see me taking care of, because it's just something that I've always done. When you started talking about having the conversation and getting your husband ready, the
Hmm.
thing that immediately popped into my head is all of the memes on social media about people wanting to take their paid time off, and um, people saying no. And it's like, no, my PTO is prepare the others because I'm getting ready to be out and take my time. That's
Yes.
really how we have to look at it, is I am preparing you, prepare the others, get ready because it's coming. I'm getting ready to do this with or without your permission. I'm giving myself permission. I love that you said, right? I can think of right now in the immediacy of the moment, so many things that I denied myself that I enjoyed for the comfort of others. Because I'm a caregiver. As a nurse, I care for people, right? Patients, but I'm also a caregiver at home.
Hmm.
I've had alternately over the last, handful of years, I've had my son, my mother live with me until she passed. I have my grandbaby right now. So I'm always taking care of someone else. And the number of times that I have not done something, not gone somewhere, not given myself something for the comfort of the folks that I'm taking care of, I need to do better. And I recognize that, because when I'm not taking care of myself, I'm also not taking the best possible care of them.
That's right.
And I think that that's something that women in particular, because of all of the things that we shoulder and all of the things that we carry, and in all of the ways that, as we transition from being a child into being an adolescent into being a teenager on the cusp of womanhood, having
Mhm.
that first period,
Mhm.
entering womanhood, becoming a parent, parenting our parents, all of these transitional periods, we're so busy shouldering the weight of other people's expectations,
Mhm.
other people's needs, other people's wants, taking care of their emotional growth, of their physical growth. We leave ourselves behind and we leave ourselves in last so much. I love thinking of the menopausal transition as a period of time for us to step into and put ourselves first. I love
Mhm.
the idea of that. And I
Mhm.
think that if we present it as that more and more, more women will get comfortable in having a
Yes.
menopause party, right? Let's have a menopause party. Like, dang, I just realized I haven't had a period in a year. I'm getting ready to have a party. Why not?
Why not? Why not?
And so I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Um, I
Yes.
mean,
You said something, Bridget. I know we have like 3 minutes. I want to be mindful of the time. But you said something about the PTO, right? And again, this is about like the resources that we have available to us. And I just started getting in the habit of taking like 2 weeks off at the end of the year, right? And what it looks like, because my daughter is typically off because she's in school. But it also looks like me having lunch with a friend that I kept saying all year, girl, we gonna get together, and we don't. Right. So it looks like me really being intentional 2 weeks out of that year, right? Like I listen, she goes from school and then there's opportunity for holiday camp. Right. So because they have these things now, I don't remember that growing up, but I'm here for it, where she can go and she can do her activities from say 9 to 3 or 9 to 5. And then that's my time to figure out how I'm gonna pour into my cup. It could be just
yeah.
sitting home, it could be the Netflix and chill, it could be getting out in nature, it could be having lunch with a friend. And I love what you said. Give yourself permission. Give
Hmm.
yourself permission to pour into your cup, because if you don't, then you become the very irritated woman that when you were younger, you look at some of the older women and they just seem ornery because they're experiencing
Yes.
all the things and they don't have an outlet or a strategy in place to like mitigate and pour into their cups. So
Yeah.
just wanted to say that as well.
Honorary is another word. You
Yeah.
coming with them today, girl.
Uh-oh, look at us. Look at us.
We have, Olivia says she don't remember that either. She loves a holiday camp.
Yes.
Um, she said during the holidays and us being in a daze from the holidays, that'd be a
Yes.
present for herself. I know that's right. And no, I don't remember that either. I remember after school, you know, the after school stuff. But even now, with all of, never mind, I'm not even going to go into all of the cuts and how that doesn't happen. We're not
Mm-hmm.
going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to stay focused on what we are on. There is a survey that Krista just posted into the chat um, for today's session. Please take the survey. What happens when you take the survey is it lets us know, number one, how we're doing in our programming, and it helps us to ensure that we are delivering the information and programming that you need to thrive as our community, because we don't do anything without our community or for our community. So please do take the survey. Miss Dottie, in 30 seconds, any last words about the menopausal? We didn't even touch on sex. We're gonna have another conversation so we can do that. Because, girl, that's a whole other thing. But I'm sorry, I'm not gonna distract us. 30 seconds. Last thoughts
I'm
on the
listen, I'm
menopausal
always
transition.
distracted by sex. I'm always distracted by sex. So anyway, we can have that conversation another time. But the last is give yourself permission to pour into your cup, and let's continue to have these conversations in our communities where we can start this dialogue and sharing of experiences as well as strategies, because you never know what another person is going through can be beneficial to you as well. So that's what I leave you with today. And thank
I
you
love
so
that.
much for having me.
Absolutely. This was such a pleasure. I love when I'm able to talk with people that I respect, admire, and love, because it then becomes a conversation and not just us going, not a series of questions. It's a conversation. And I feel like this was a good one. I think we helped some folks. I know you helped me in some ways and put some gave me some little light bulb nuggets and moments. So I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who was here, whether you are here or on Facebook or on our YouTube or Instagram. We appreciate your time. We will see you next month for the next A Girl Like Me Live. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.